Hi, in this video I will show you how to put together this retro canister, which is an SVG file from Simply Crafty SVGs. So we're going to make this canister. It looks kind of like this. So it has some geometric folds on the top, and it's a pretty big canister for a gift. So you can see I kind of made this a kitchen theme, which I kind of went a little kitchen like. I used some papers from a kitchen set. So that was an old set I had. So we have these pieces. This is for the bottom part. So these big pieces and this round with the cutout in the middle. And then here's the sides. So the bottom is not as difficult as the top piece. Here's all the lid pieces. And then plus those. So we're going to start with the hardest part first. So we're going to move these. So we can go ahead and pull these over. So what this is, these pieces make up this piece. So it's going to make up this kind of geometric look. It's not easy to put in one piece, and it's not as hard as it seems. There's a lot of little pieces, but it's not so bad. Then this will be the part that inserts into the bottom of the to hold the lid in place. And these are the top. And that's the top right there. And these are the sides of the canister, like this right here. So of course this is the top part right here, and then this is this side right here. So we're going to start with this first. So you'll notice that their tabs are rounded in the bottom and they're flat in the top, and the flat ones are smaller than the rounded. And also there's a cut right here. So don't fold that. We want it to be around the edge. It's going to still kind of look a little rigid, but there's not a bunch of folds. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of rubbing it, I guess burnishing it in a sense, to get a curl in it before you fold those tabs. So we're going to start, like I said, the lid. We're going to put it piece it together a little bit, because this is the one I think that we need to always do, the part that when you get tired in a project, I mean, whether you take a break, I mean, you can always take a break obviously, but let's start with what I deem the more difficult part of the project. I do it myself because as I get tired I tend to make more mistakes. So I've learned even in these videos to show you to do it first. So when you line this up, there's a little cut line, like I said, next to the tab. We're going to go that edge, and we don't want to go right to it. We kind of want to go up to it, but it's going to be a little bit to the right in this way. And just make sure these score lines are lined up. So you don't want it too tight, else what's going to happen is when we put this on, it's not going to fit. So we need a little bit of a gap. So give yourself a little gap. And so on the second one, I'll show you a little bit better, because I was talking. So you can see the little, there's a little cut mark there, right there. Making sure it's zooming in. Sometimes it doesn't focus really well. But we're going to go right. I'm going to do a little bit further to the left there of it. I'll just hope you can see it. The way I see it is a little bit different in a preview, so sometimes it comes out, sometimes not. So right there, I'm folding these back, and the reason I folded those back is to help us center it. You could have done that on the first one too. So remember, do not fold this. This is just a guide so you know where to place this. So the round tabs, as I'm placing this, so I'm just making sure I don't go over that cut line, but I want to go a little bit to the left of it just to give it a little room inside so the next step will work well. the round part is going to go around the bottom piece. This is the top. So the flat pieces are the top, and the rounded are the bottom of the canister. So now we're going to go ahead and flip these all in. Let's only flip the ones that are flat, small ones. So I'm flipping them all in. I'm going to flip them all out too, but I'm training them right now. Oh, I don't need to flip them all out. You're going to have to flip them out to glue a little bit. So we're going to take this piece. So my feedback is we're going to place it inside. We're going to glue it on the inside and glue all those tabs. So we could have added glue to start with. You see how it fits in there? So my feedback is this is the top. So what's going to happen is this is going to glue to the top after to hide all those tabs. If you want just this color, you just have to, instead of cutting a piece like this out of a pattern paper, you could just cut another piece like this. These are the same size, out of this color if you want it that color. If you want the lid to be this solid color. So you could, so I'm showing you how it's going to go in. So when I fold them in, I'm kind of pushing down. So we're going to do these in, not all at once because your glue may dry by then. But what you can do is like a quarter of them at a time. If your glue it really stays dry, wet for a while, you could do more than that. So I think I'm going to go about a third. So it's up to you. Because the process after this is the same. So I'm going to put, it doesn't really matter where I have the texture size in or out because I'm going to cover it anyways. I'm going to have the texture size down, and the reason I'm doing that because it glues better non-textured to textured. So I'm going to start, I'll start over here on the very first tab. Then I'll go around, and I'm pushing in the sides as I go around to get that in place. So if you glued it too close on the sides, it might not fit right. So if you're having that trouble, then you probably overlapped the tab. It's something I do, even though I know it, I still do it. So I have to pay extra close attention when I'm doing things like this. So then, just going to pull up, say I went a third of the tabs. So I'm going to pull up about a third. I'm making sure all of them are glued. And then I'll continue adding the glue. So if you do like some of our 3D, our projects, like these 3D ones, I always appreciate a little like on the video and or subscribe to our channel. And if you hit that little notification bell on the right, it'll let you know when we have tutorials or new projects out there. So it'll just notify you in YouTube. So now that we did those, what we're going to do is flip it over again, kind of push them in. So they don't bow out when we flip it over. And I'm going to start where I ended and just keep on going around, pushing in. And you want to go around in order so you have no gaps, or try to minimize gaps. There's going to be gaps. There's always a slight gap somewhere. Unless you're perfect. I'm sure there's somebody out there that can do this better than I can. Oh boy. Make sure these are all glued, and then we'll do the final ones. So I'll go ahead and finish those off, then we'll move on to the next step. So I finished it, so you can see this will be the top like this. And then this will be the part that goes in. So the thing that I would say is, we're not going to quite do it, but you want to train these backwards a little bit. I'm trying to make the lid less poofier so it doesn't lift up as much. So folding the tabs back and just really getting them loose, it's going to help a little bit. But you see how it kind of raises up? It'll raise up less if you really get these scored well. So this will be the bottom of the lid, so I have it lifting up just a little bit there, but that's okay. So we're not going to do anything with that. I'm just training them down. Here we're going to go ahead and add this panel on the top. So the reason is so I can get in there and apply pressure easily with my fingers. So you can add glue on the actual panel on this, or some will find it easier. I normally do just add right here around the edge, but I really want to get close to the edge. So what I'm doing, I'm just moving that out of the way so you can see. I'm just really adding glue to the edge here. And make sure you don't add too much glue for the glue that you're using. So know your glue well if you need to test it with your paper. So it doesn't ripple the paper on you, because this is not really thick. I mean, it's a lighter cardstock I'm using for this. This is printed, but so I'm going around and I'm making sure I'm using the inside shape to the inside part to make sure that it's aligned as well as it can be. I'm a little bit off, so let me fix that. Drive me batty. Okay, let's get one side, get the other side situated. Once I get it in place, I can go around and apply pressure. The other thing I'm going to end up doing on this is inking these edges with a little bit of a brown tone, either distress ink or chalk ink, just to hide any of the tabs that you can kind of edges of them. Most of them won't be seen, but they might be if they pop out a little bit. Because everybody's different in how their style and how they glue. Some areas may show, some won't. But you do your best not to by getting that inside edge as close as possible. So it's not a perfect circle when you're using tabs anyway, so you do the best you can. So when I say that, I'm going to use this little ink, this old ink pad I have. Just going to go over, just lightly try to get it at an edge. Or if you have a tool similar to that. It's not exactly the same brown, but I used this earlier on the edge of some of the panels. That's one of the reasons I like inking, because it doesn't hide mistakes. I say there's no mistakes, it just hides little imperfections well. So you could even do more, I was just showing you. So make sure that's good and on there well. Then now that we've trained these a little bit, we'll go ahead and glue that piece on. So take this piece. So there's like it'll score. It's going to score outward, but actually, if you had double-sided, you might want to let it put the glue the texture side on. I was trying to think of the words, because this is going to fold out, and we're going to glue strips around it for the insert. So if you don't care that much, what I would suggest, if you keep this non-textured side, if you're using textured paper, this way. And the reason I say that is once we flip these down, we can flip them the opposite way. If you want the texture on the outside, you'll have to flip them up. Okay, so, but I'm not going to care too much about that, because And honestly, who's gonna look? If you have, of course, solid core paper. If it's white on the bottom, that's up to you. You may want to flip it over the other way, and then you would flip the tabs this way. So if I did it the texture side, of course, I'd have to flip the tabs outward. Because what's going to happen is once we get this on, and we're not going to do this right away, by the way. This is going to be one of the last things, but we're just going to put this strip around to create that insert. So there's 2 strips there. So I'm going to flatten it here for now to make it easier to put together. But I'm telling you which way you want to. It'll determine how you glue this on. So we're going to glue this up here. So we can't put it on the inside. We could, but you'd have to put a little strip. But what I did here is really not that difficult if you have it open like this. I'm going to just start adding glue to, I would say, if you want to go a third, for this one I would probably just go a fourth, because you're going to have to go around with every individual tab and match it up. It's not quite there. So again, get good folds on these tabs. And it's perfectly round, so this panel. So you're going to start somewhere, and I'm going to just match it up and have my finger note that it's pretty flush. It's never going to be completely perfect, but you're going to just go around, and I'm right in here. I'm pressing the tabs as I go around. So make sure you don't press it down until you're to that place, because you don't want it gluing another tab before you're ready. So all these tabs are hidden. I did the top part that way. We could have done the top part like that. And you still can. If you feel that you want to do it that way, you can do it that way. I had one more glued there. So I'm just going around that edge. But I did it the easy way on the other side. Because there's 2 different methods, and I feel like sometimes we need to utilize the easier ways. So the only thing with this, when you do partials, you have to get in there to add glue. So this is why we're doing this first. So you can flip them back inside and add glue with the little fine tip applicator. So the only one that's going to be hard to get to is like the first 2 after the one of the glued ones. So we're just going to go there. So I added glue to 2. So then we can go ahead and continue adding glue by just separating it. So if you feel like you're fast enough to get the tabs glued before the glue dries, you want to, that determines how many tabs you're going to do at once. When you see this tab went a little awry, a little bit off, but we'll deal with that. So I'm going to do that first here. So we just continue going around. And again, I'm using my thumb to make sure that this edge is lined up to that fold, with the tab fold edge, so we can get it as accurate as possible. And make sure you hold it as long as you need to for the glue that you're using. So for example, if you use Aleene's tacky glue, because a lot of people do, it takes just a little bit longer to dry. So you can see as I get here, it kind of went out a little bit because of that stray, it wasn't perfect fold there, but you make it work. So I won't tab past that. So I'm going to finish that. So we're just going to continue adding glue to these tabs. Again, if you have a hard time, you can try to reach in with a fine tip applicator from the side. But if you have a hard time getting to the ones that are close to the last one that was glued, you could always flip them backwards inside and glue them from inside. So I'll finish this up, and then we'll move on to the next step. So if you get to the end like I did and it was kind of bowing a little bit, glue is mini at the very end, and then you can make adjustments and push it out a little bit as you need to. So that does happen, especially if it's a little bit larger. But you see, I just did it the seam. I mean, it folded a little bit. Normally it would not, but these are not the easiest shapes to deal with. So you do your best, and it's just a lot of practice. So real quick, I'm going to, I added glue to this piece. So these go together. So before we use this, I'm going to just go ahead and add that on top. You could do it, it's not going to be as simple later, so you want to put it on top before you assemble. Just get it lined up well. Of course, if you had cardstock, you could just use one layer, but... And you can see this is kind of relaxing. The reason I'm kind of pushing this in a little bit, this paper, to get it so when it sits on the canister, so here's the canister, once we get these down, that it will sit a little bit more flush. So I'm just kind of training it a little bit, because these will go inside these little tabs. So you can do that a little bit if you want it to get a little flush. Try not to push it too hard to obviously rip it. So we're going to put that aside, and we're going to start on the top piece. So I did that. This is going to be the top of that. So we're going to do this knob right here, and then we'll attach it to that. So what you want to do is take these two pieces like that, and the one that's got the round on it, this is going to go inside. So this round is going to connect to that. So this is rounded, so you know it connects right there. This is a longer round that will be going inside this. So it's going to go together just like this. So, but we're going to fold it first. So it needs to be good and folded. Since it's 10-sided, it's a little bit more time consuming to do this one, to make it look more like a round knob. So remember, this is the bottom part right here. So it's the bottom part right there. So it's important to keep these tabs up like that, because that's how we're going to start putting it together. So make sure when you put those two pieces together that the end tabs are both up. And again, the rounded tab on this one is the one that gets glued underneath the other section, and then the longer rounded one goes inside here. So that's the bottom, that's the top, without the top piece. So we're going to start here after we have it folded. So you can add glue to another couple of the tabs, but we want to first anchor that first one, so I'm going to just do 3 tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and carefully line this up, because it's always the first tab that's critical, the first section. So you want to make sure it's lined up, that edge to the tab fold, and it's lined up in that section, so these score lines would match up, and you should see 2 tabs at the top. If you don't see 2 tabs, then you're putting it together wrong, up here. So that's, I had to give you a visual representation of how to put this together so you don't put it together incorrectly. And why I say that is because I had a hard time the first time I put this together, because it's not always intuitive to see the shapes and know which way it goes together. I mean, I did it right, but I thought, oh, how are they going to know? So if you're off on that first tab, the rest's going to be off. To just know that. So if for some reason you get way off, just cut another 2 of these and start over. If you have to practice it, practice it. And because I am a smidgen off, when you have this many tabs that you're wrapping around, if you're off just a little bit, that's why you need to be mindful of every single tab that you're gluing. The whole thing will be off. I'm going to add glue to the rest of them so I can do it all at once. So I'm just matching it up, making sure. I'm kind of pulling it to that left piece towards me. Then you can see it's just kind of naturally, as long as you have it folded, it's going to naturally line up and fold around here. So since I'm using art glitter glue, I know that it don't take long. It doesn't take long for each tab to adhere. And I'm just used to it because I use it a lot. So whatever glue you use, you're going to have to gauge that time. And I did fairly close. I was off on one pretty significantly. And I see I'm a little bit off at the end, but not horribly. So this is going to go around like that. So make sure they're all nice and secure before you do that. So if you're not used to doing 3D projects like this, we have a couple freebies that try a couple of our freebies before you try something like this. I just happen to do a lot of tabs on this one where it could get frustrating for somebody quite easily. So take your time. So now we're just going to glue those 2 tabs underneath. I'm gonna do the bigger one first. So it's a little bit off. You can see that last tab's off a little bit. So I'm just lining this up best I can. And then getting that top one in place. Wasn't too bad though. That's what I said, if you don't line up that first one really well, then, and I was a little bit off on the first one, I can see it. No excuses, it just happens. So I'm kind of holding these in place while I fold these backwards because they will go inside. If you need to train the fold, you can train it forward and then pull it to a valley fold. You still have to squish them again to get them in the hole. So they're going to glue to each of those areas. So we're going to adhere one. And we'll put the lid on this top. Let's go ahead and put the lid on first. So because this is a small, you'll have to do a little maneuvering to get this on. Make sure your glue is pretty wet so we can kind of move it around, but it can't be just really sticky because we're going to have to move it around a little bit before we get it in place. So make sure you've got a little glue everywhere here. Get the texture side up. I'm going to start lining it up on a side where the seam's not, so at least I can know that I can get it. situated. So I'm reaching my finger in as I guide it around and applying pressure to the tabs. I'm kind of pushing it in to line up that side. So I'm going to flip around. I did like a couple tabs that way. I'm going to go the other way because that's the seam in the back. So I want to make it as pretty in the because we want a pretty front end. Nothing's really bad actually so far. Knock on wood. So I'm just pressing the tabs from the inside. That was my dog running away. And then we just can go around and make sure those tabs are good and secure. So there's the knob with the lid on. Again, I'm going to end up inking the edges a little bit with a little bit of that brown. So when we need to put it in here, so we need to get it in a place where it's notched in the right place. So what we're going to do is add glue to one of the tabs. You see how I added it? So I'm going to make sure that it's in one of the edges here. So because you have 10 little, it's a decagon. So I'm going to get it in place there. I'm going to fold it over and glue that tab on the inside. I was making sure that the inside fold was lined up with that edge. And what I like to do with polygons like this, with this method, is I like to go right across from it and get the second one across from it in place like that. So the rest will glue a little bit better. So if you just go around, there's a possibility that you glue one wrong and it won't line up well. So I'm pushing that in so I can get that edge lined up. A little inside tab fold. Then we can go ahead and glue the rest of these. So I just get 4 on one side first and then do the other 4. So you might have to kind of squish it in a little bit so you can get that. You can feel it if it's not folding properly. It's paper, so the nice thing is it's pliable. It's a tight fit. So you want to get it as close as possible so it doesn't it kind of looks like it does look like it's attached. It is attached. And then we'll do the last 4. So you can see we're doing this in a modular format where we're doing the knob, one part of the lid. Again, push in a little bit if you feel it's not folding well. And then once you get them all folded, you can put it flat like that. And if you're going to ink it, this would be a good time to ink it as well because it's easy to maneuver. So I'm just putting a little light brown just like I did around the edges. And you could do this with anything you have that you like to do any accents. I just like the look of it, and I also like that, I really just do like the look. It's not that it hides imperfections. I just like the look of blended ink on the edges. It gives it kind of a distressed look. And this is the ink that, before somebody asked me, that's no longer that I got from a scrapbooking show, but you could use distress ink with distress tools. I have things like this that you could use in ink to ink the edges. I've done that. And there's lots of videos. Some of the videos I would recommend are, who's really good at inking is Jennifer McGuire. I've watched a lot of her techniques because that's not my strong point, obviously. Not sure what my strong point is. Hopefully making these. So the next thing we're going to do is put the fauceted part together of the lid. So we're going to put these pieces together. There should be 10 of these. They look like this. And we're going to go ahead and start folding them. So I think it's easier. There's a little, do you see how it looks like that? There's kind of a diamond here. So a diamond shape, so you can fold like that. And there's tabs right here. And fold them really well. So I'll do one more to show you. So there should be 10 of them, so make sure you have them all before you start. So I felt like it was easier to go around this diamond, make the diamond shape, and then fold the tabs. So this tab will attach to the knob piece towards the top, and then this will attach to the inside of this. So, oh look, I have a little tab that popped up. Get that glued. I don't think I ever glued. Interesting. No wonder it didn't glue right. That's one of the reasons I put this together first, is because it's easier to reach in. So always double check things. So with these folded, it's really not as hard as it seems. We're just going to be gluing these two pieces over and over again, like that. So let's go ahead and do one. So add glue to both these tabs. Then take the diamond piece like that. And we're going to glue one side first. So it just depends. They're really close together. So there's not any trick. You just want to do that top side like that. And you can kind of bend it so the other piece doesn't glue. So just line it up there, and then once you get that one lined up, you can do, they pretty much can be done at the same time. Do you want to get them as close as possible? So any gaps that you have are going to affect this bottom piece. So you want to make sure these tabs are close as possible. So I had a little bit of a gap. You're going to have gaps. It's not, there's no perfection. So if you want to, you can glue them on. So you can either do it like that, continue, or you can do it this way. So some people might find it easier to glue the tabs on this way. Oops. Just be careful with the glue because it's going to be seen. We don't have any panels on these. So if you find it easier, you might want to do it this way. I'm just kind of angling it so it doesn't, the second tab doesn't glue. But you're lining up that edge to the tab fold. So I want to make sure that that lines up too. So you kind of have to do them at the same, separate at the same time. Unfortunately, I couldn't make one big piece to do this without it not going together well. So just continue around that way. Again, this is one of those things that you could practice prior to doing this, because these are teeny pieces. So if you wanted to see how it's going to work for you, or what's going to work best for you, you could go ahead and cut some practice pieces. But it's really not that bad once you get into the hang of it. I think it's been a week since I did my last one, so I had to get my rhythm going here. And make sure you have a little damp cloth I kind of pulled up there. I went a little bit too high for the camera view. But that's what it looks like on the inside. So it's going to look like that on the inside of the, I mean, they're not going to be able to see it that much because of this, so that we don't have any panels on the inside to hide that. So we'll continue going around, adding these until we get the 10 attached. So make sure you have 10 before you start, so you don't attach it on the 9th one. That's always not fun. Believe me, I've done it. Where I thought I had all the pieces, and then on the 9th one, or it's usually six-sided, I'll put 5 sides and go, why does it look funny? Well, there's a reason for that. Because one drops on the floor, or because it's easy with these small pieces. So make sure they're on the desk, not too close to the edge. So I'll finish this up, and you can watch me as I glue each piece. So it does take some time, so do be patient with this part. So now that we have almost all of them on, well, we have them all together. So you can always count them too, the tabs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll just close it up. And it's a slight fold, so as you can see that even as you're gluing it, it's almost flat, but it's not flat at the same time. It creates a curve. Should have had that underneath. I don't care what it is, the last one's always tricky. It's a little bit off. So make sure they're all pretty secure. The other thing is, when you fold this, we're going to fold these tabs down. You want to fold them upward too, because they're going to glue inward. So it kind of cracked right there, but you shouldn't be able to see it. And I inked it a little bit around the edges after I pulled them up. And you could use the same ink color as your paper, and it would blend in well. But since I'm kind of going with the browns and pink together, that works for me. So we're going to go ahead and add this now. So you can see that's going to fit on top. So we're going to take this solid piece, then we're going to put it in like that. So don't be worried if it doesn't exactly. So what we're going to do is put that in, then we'll glue this on top of that. So you can do the opposite. If you wanted to go around like this and then glue that to hide it, that's up to you too. I'm going to go with gravity though. So any gaps that you had putting this on, right here between these tabs, that means that middle panel is not going to fit just right. And that's okay. So we want it to fit as well as it can. It gives us a wider space to glue the top part too to adhere it better. So I'm just making sure my glue coverage is pretty good there. And I'm just going to do the non-textured sides because that glues better. So I'm not going to kind of line it up too much. I'm just going to put it in the middle, make sure it's covering it well. Because inevitably you're going to have little cracks like that, or little gaps, and it's not that noticeable really. See, you can see it's not that noticeable. So once we get this on, so if you wanted to hide the imperfections there before we put on the use your whatever technique. This one's falling apart, by the way. It's almost time to throw. The ink is good, but the ink pad is dry. It's probably because of where I live. And then we're just going to place it on top, like that. So I'm going to just add glue down here, around the edges. Just gives it more to adhere to if I put that inside. I'm just going to line it up. Again, it's not going to be perfect because we're not a machine. So when we glue these things on, you do your best to get as close as possible with that curved area, that, what do we want to call it, kind of geometric section. And then you want to go ahead, and I'm just carefully reaching in and applying pressure around the edges first. Because you really can't lay this flat or anything. You could try to gently push it in where it's not matching as perfect as you'd like it. There it is. Kind of a fun shape. And if you look at the extra stuff folder, I'm just going to give you some full diamond. And an offset diamond if you want to add a little extra bling or some panels, but as it is, the file's without those. So look in the extra stuff folder and you will find those. So now we're going to go ahead and you can see I kind of have them folded outwards, kind of pushing down to get that trained. We're going to glue them to the inside here. So similar to how we glued this on, we're just going to glue one here and then the opposite on the other side and then glue all the rest down. So let's go ahead and add glue to this one. Got that a little bit too wet, but that's okay. So be careful not to get it on the pattern paper. So if we need to, you could fold those down to reach in a little bit, but be careful because it could be, we don't want it to tear off any of them. I want to get it in place. Kind of flipping it over so I can apply pressure inside. So be careful again with these tabs. You should be able to reach in fairly, just carefully. I know this is not pleasant. This is not the easiest, like I said. So we have that. So I'm going to fold the rest of these inward. I kind of fold them all the way in so we can glue them easily from the inside. except for maybe that one that's right next to it, the ones that are right next to it. So we glued this one right here, so we're going to glue the opposite one. So again, I'm just getting anchored so the rest of them will fall into place easier. Let's get them all through. I think we have them all through. I just wanted to make sure I had the right tab. Okay. Sometimes it's all about just finding the right angle. So I have my fingers in there. So I assembled this a little bit different the first time I did it. So I wasn't ready for the angles I had to shift my fingers to, so I apologize. So those two, if you can kind of see inside. That one's folded in. So for this part we'll have to pull these up, and you need to be really careful not to, actually we'll just glue the edge around so these don't break. So let's do that really quick and then we can reach in a little bit better. So I knew something was going to be difficult to get to, and that's one of the ones that's difficult to get to. But we don't want these breaking off, so we're going to pull these up like this. You can just have it sit on its knob. It's going to be a little wonky because of the, we only had two of those glued on the inside. So we're going to take these two pieces and we're going to curl them. And again, there's a little cut line here. You don't want to bend it. You just want that the guide of where we're going to glue it to. I'm going to go ahead and go kind of up to it. So we don't want to close this one up to give us a little bit of, actually we might be able to. Let's go ahead and check it out here. Okay. And again, it looks kind of weird because of these pieces we haven't glued yet. So just go up to it, not over it, to create this loop. So it's going to go around these. So I'm going to add glue to a couple tabs on both sides. I'm going to let it lift on one side. We're just going to start gluing some of these tabs. Make sure you push down so this edge is lined up or touches that bottom piece. So I only added glue to a couple. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to glue the other side. Same thing. Just a couple. If you need to quickly get the rest of them under, do that. You could just go around too. You don't have to do it because it might not match up well for you. Just a different method that I'm trying to help with. The reason I'm doing it this way rather than a different method that I've done in the past. So I'm going to push down as I go around here. And I'm kind of lightly placing them until I get around the edge here. Make sure there's no significant gaps. But the reason I'm doing it this way is because I'm trying to eliminate the bow or the gap that you get. With this top, you see it kind of bows down. That's what creates the gap when it sits on the base. I'm having a hard time gluing this. The first time I did this, it was fine. But of course on video it's not going to go. So I didn't put enough glue, or it's just a little bit too far away from it. So I'm just going to make it a little wetter. And I'll just have to hold it a little longer. Again, this is a different method that I've used before. Just trying different things. There's no rule when it comes to, there's no paper crafting handbook. I know there's people that have techniques, but I like to try new techniques. Not sure if I'll do this one again. I may. Probably not with the round though. So I'm trying to push down at the same time. And it's just getting a little tight at the end here. So anything round, I think I've noted this in many a video. It has its own challenges, especially with tabs, because tabs are not intrinsically round, so you have to put a lot of tabs. Okay, what I realized, what I forgot to add in this video, so it looks different. Obviously the desk looks different. The elephant in the room is things are a little bit different. Anyways, when you get this lid piece around, nobody wants to see those insides. So there's obviously 4, I didn't show earlier, but there's 4 pieces. There's 4 of these pieces. So 2 of them will go on the outside around, and the other 2 will go on the inside. So the way we want to do that is you can glue the 2 together like that. Don't glue them shut because we want to wrap it around the way it needs to be. So we're going to start at the flat side. And if this video if it wiggles a little bit, it's just because of my video set up at an alternate location than my normal location. So we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to put the textured side. You can put the textured side inside. So let's just do that. So I'm going to curl it the other way. So we're going to go ahead and do the non-textured side. And I'm going to start with the pointy edge. So it's not as noticeable on the inside. But it's going to hide all these tabs. I'm using a regular art glitter glue bottle. Don't leave home without it. Yes, I don't, for those watching, I haven't taken a vacation in a long time, real vacation. So I'm kind of out and about visiting some family, but on this video. It's not necessarily a vacation of sorts. Not until we get through this pandemic. So I'm lining it up to the top of the other one to start. So I know you're going to have a full lid. This is just this piece, so I can demonstrate it. So what I would do is get it started and set, and then gently lift it out. Try not to get too much jiggle, because I've got a kind of an old school setup right now. The business doesn't stop wherever I go, because I have to be available all the time. As of this video, I don't know if I ever will have help, but as of this video, I still, it's me, myself, and I. A little bit help from my other half every once in a while with little things around the craft room, but they don't do anything with this. So I'm just going to set it in there, and then I'm going to guide it around where I ended up. Lining it up, and remember, you're going to have a whole lid, so you might have to lift it up and do it. But I just want to demonstrate it more so than anything else. And when you get to the edge, you see how it overlaps? So I started at the same seam that I was on the outside. Then just really get it tight and just clean it up so you can't see those tabs on the inside. I haven't had a faux pas like this in a video for a while, so it's just something I forgot to run through, and I wanted to make sure that everybody could see it demonstrated, even if I have kind of a weird setup for the video. So you can see it. So now you can't see the tabs on the inside at all, and that'll finish off the edge of the lid. And it's not going to make it any thicker, because obviously that's the thickness outside. So all it really, its purpose is to clean it up, and you won't be able to, you'll only be able to go from this side because you'll have a whole lid here, as you saw in the previous clip. So now, all that to glue the insides, right? So now I can reach in without breaking those tabs. Add glue to these inside tabs. So that's what I'm doing. I'm reaching in and adding glue to those tabs that are folded towards me. And if they're not folded towards me, I have to kind of reach in and carefully fold them towards me. And I wouldn't do more than the 4 in between each. We have those 2 anchored. If you need to get a small tool, you could do that too. I already had glue on that and I didn't know. Okay. So carefully now, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm folding them up, the ones I just added glue to, in each of the sections. Again, if you feel a little resistance, it's purely because it wasn't, when we glued it together, there's always a little room for error. It doesn't help if you don't have any glue on the tab. So I was just trying to move a tab that didn't have any glue. So you can take something like a chopstick and fold it backwards towards you. Or just reach in with your fingertip. Depends. This is why this is the size it is. Because we don't want it any smaller. So it's not hard to, makes it harder to glue. So you can see in there, I'm trying to flip them backwards to add glue. I have stubby fingers, so I can't get behind it. There we go. So it's folded back, so now I can add glue to it. So you might want to take a couple minutes to fold them backwards, make sure that you get all the glue coverage you need. So you can see I'm right-handed, so right there. So I'm just using my thumb at the same time as applying pressure on the top. Same thing. Didn't show you there. So we're going to go around and we're going to finish the rest of them. So I have 4 more to go in there. See, they're flipped up. I'm going to flip them back, add glue, and then just go around. And then I'm going to rub, see how it's loose right there? I'm just going to go ahead and fold those tabs inward and rub from the top while applying pressure from the bottom piece. So a lot of the challenge was just getting this in the right hand. So I have my thumb going around pressing the tabs inside as I go around. I just didn't have, like that, I just didn't have the right angle. And that's where practice comes in handy, because I had done this before and I made some slight changes to the design which affected how I assemble this. So I do apologize. What would be helpful is when you put this in is to fold all the tabs inward as much as you can, so when you attach those two, you'll be able to fold them back easily. So you can see they're all attached now. So here's the finished lid. So I inked it a little bit more around the edges there. So I have a little bit of, you can see it kind of ridges a little bit, and then I had that little bowing area. But it's kind of fun. Kind of gives it a retro look. Well, I thought so anyways, but I thought it would be a fun alternative to a box. So let's go ahead and put the bottom piece together. So I'm going to show you how to fold these pieces. So I curved them by curving them on the side of a table. So those two pieces, I'm going to zoom out in a minute here. But I'll show you how to curl these. So you want to pre-curl those before we put this together, and this is the easiest part of the project. So here's how you can do these larger, curl these larger panels. This is on the edge of a table. So I'm just going to slowly roll it over as I'm applying pressure, pulling down. So that'll pre-curl it for when we put it on the side there. So I already did the other one, but here's that one. Again, I'm just lightly pulling it through like that, and that'll help with the panels around. So when we curl these, what you can do is just do it on the edge of the table like that. If you have a round edge, it's better. Like I have this little plastic table. I shouldn't say little, it's a 6-foot table. And I'll help pre-curl it for you. I mean, you could theoretically do it with your hands too, or with a large, like, dowel, something like that. But this is pretty good for larger pieces. So if it's smaller, then I would say you could use like a round pencil, pen, that kind of thing. You can see it rounding it. Okay, so now that you have them curled like this, let's match them up so they're sitting the same way. So if you want the tab to the left, and it's not really a tab, it's again cut marks. This is the bottom. The top's a little bit, the tabs on the top are shorter than the bottom ones. So if you put this tab piece to the right, then you'll have the tabs on the bottom. So let's go ahead and put these together. So as with what I've been telling you before, is to give it just a little bit of space. So when we line this, we add glue to this and then we line this up. What you can do, here, let me show you a good tip here. Bend the two tabs at the end, so it'll help you line it up at the bottom here. It helps you line up the top and bottom so you can see where the... So I'm just going a little bit to the right of the cut lines. Again, don't fold it. And when we get to this one, excuse me, again, if you fold these 2 tabs. I'm just adding glue up to the left of the 2 cut lines. If you fold these 2, it'll help you line up the top and bottom. Visually, you can see it a little bit better. So you can make it kind of flat. This is what you do. You can kind of flatten it in the air once we have it kind of in place, which is nice with wet glue. I put it to the left of the cut lines a little bit. And then once you have it in place and centered where it needs to be, so that was off a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much about it. We can flip it upside down and apply pressure. So there's a little round. So remember, the tab has to be on the right. So these are longer tabs than that, so that the longer ones go on the bottom. So we're going to fold these in. Nice sharp folds. We're not going to add the bottom part piece just yet. We'll do the top part. So let's fold those top pieces down. So my right hand is the top, are the top tabs. So I could have done the trick where I put this on the inside and glued it on the inside and then glued another one on the top, and you can cut an extra one, but this way I'm just going to have you glue it on top. So we're just going to go around. So it is a challenge, I'm not going to lie. So if you want to cut an extra piece of this, you can slide it in there and glue on the inside and then glue another one on top. So that's one way to do it. It's easier for many people to do it that way. I was trying to minimize paper, but I think it just depends on how many pieces of paper you have. It still takes, I think, 4 12 by 12s for the, I think you could just add another one and it wouldn't take that much more. I'm just going to get it started with a couple tabs. So it's really not that bad, especially since you can reach in. And if your glue can stay wet for a while, I think I would go around the whole thing. You could also add glue like that if you around the. So I'm going to do it in thirds. I'm just lightly placing it, just making sure, because I don't want to get into the bowing situation I did earlier. So when you get to that last third, or half, depending on how you do it, I didn't finish that sentence, didn't I? Okay, so if you get to the last third, I'm trying to glue these as fast as possible. I realize it's a lot of little tabs. Kind of want to place it down. And guide it around. And the reason why we kind of do this slowly, because we want to make sure that we want to match that edge as close to the circle as possible. And if we feel like we have it in place, so I'm just kind of pushing it in from the edge, you can go ahead and flip it over and apply pressure to the tabs on the inside. So you should make sure that they're nice, and that's the top. So it comes out pretty cleanly. And then this will fit usually right in. And not going straight down. So it's going to create, so fortunately we don't have much of a gap, but see there's a little gap right there. But it'll sit like that. So this one we do want to do the inside trick. So you could do just one panel, but we're going to put one inside. So I'm just going to slide one inside from the bottom, like that. And I put the texture side on the inside. So I'm going to just add glue to about 1/3, just like I did on the top. This is just to get a sturdier box too. So if I glue a panel on the inside, it not only makes it easier, but it makes it more sturdy. And you have to make sure your glue is pretty dry, wet before you. So this is the first one right here. So I'm just going to let it push it down. And I'm just going to line it up with the edge and kind of apply pressure, making sure I'm pushing in those sides at the same time, right here. And I don't recall where I ended up, so I'm kind of pushing it into place all the way down too to make sure that it fits in just fine. So you'll know once you go to the bottom which ones you have to continue from, and you can always apply pressure with your fingertips. You could do this part first too before you do the lid. I thought the lid would be easier to do first, but it really doesn't matter because it sits on top. So if you want the lid to be shaped, for shape the rounds to be shaped a little bit better, you can do that. So I'm just gluing the rest of them because I can get to them pretty easily. Then I'm going to fold them down and continue pressure on those tabs around the edge. So we got that. You think I would be smart? I did if anybody's done my birthday cake, I've done rounds before, but I always recreate them from scratch. Don't know why. So I should use what works. And the reason I say that is because I actually manually add all these tabs. I don't use an application for this. I just figure out the circumference of the rounded piece, and then I add tabs based on how small I want them to be to create more of a round piece. So here's the nice part, is that we could just flip it upside down and then add this panel. Not sure if I'll ever do a, not ever. This was a different challenge. What is that lid? The lid was the challenge. So you don't think I'm challenged, I'm challenged. So many ways. I'm making sure the texture side is down, or showing. I like to glue on the non-textured side, especially it looks pretty when somebody turns it around. So this is a pretty sturdy canister. Going around the edge. Then I'm going to flip it over, and then I can apply pressure inside. I mean, this could be a nice, let's see, welcome home gift. Kind of looks like a kitchen. I kind of made it like a kitchen canisters. So be careful about ripping that. So that looks good. here I would match it up, just overlap the seam just a little bit. So you'll see it goes around. Actually, it's just a little bit less. So just go slightly over it. And then if you go, we're going to glue it around the edge like that. So the cardstock is for structural, and then we're going to add this for decorative. So you could just glue one side. This is how I start. You could do the whole thing at once. It really doesn't matter. But if you just want to glue one, get it in place, and then go around. But I felt like it's actually quite easy to do the whole thing. So just the biggest thing is where you place it to start. So find the seam, just slightly go over it. They're going to obviously it's going to overlap, and so it doesn't really matter. I'm just sticking to the seams as a guideline, and I'm kind of holding it on the top and bottom. So I get it set in place over here, and I'm just guiding it with my hand so the edges go around really well here. As I make this, I'm thinking of the birthday cake. I think I showed this better than I did on the birthday cake, the way that I put this on. Just time. I forget what I do. People ask me questions about previous projects, and I have to go watch the videos because I'm just not, I don't remember. Oh, in fact, it's funny because I'll do, like I said, I'll do a technique that I've done before, and instead of, like a lot of people, designers might say, oh, I got that, let me go look at what I did on another project. I forget. I end up doing it from scratch, taking twice as long as I need to, because I've already done it before. But, so we're just going to go ahead and do the same, just overlap it slightly. You can see I inked the edges on this. Get it set in place first. And I'm just going to go around again, just rubbing it as I go and guiding it along. I wish I had the time to redo some other videos with my rounds, because I think I found a better technique finally to do this. So just make sure you get that on, and then no gaps. And you can go ahead and, if you do, you can add a little. What I've found is I used to look for little pieces of paper to add glue to slide in. But I have this Post-it note, so now I'm keeping the Post-it note pad handy. So you can see there's a little gap right there. I'm going to add a little glue to this paper. Just slide it in the edge here. And I learned that little trick from, not on my own, watching some other videos. Actually, I learned this from Leo from Dreaming Tree, so a lot of people are familiar with him. I'll give him that credit for that, because I never thought about that. I would put my little tip in there, but that's a nice, the little fine tip applicator, so that's a nice little easy way to do it without using the glue bottle. So I'm not too worried about that. If you go really slow, it will eliminate gaps. I'm going to go ahead and ink this. And I already inked the actual panel with a slightly different ink, actually, but And you can do the bottom edge too. So now that finishes it off. So you get rid of that. Again, if you like this project, give me a little thumbs up. Let's go ahead and wipe that away so I can show you the finished canister. So you might want to have, I'm going to just slightly glue that a little bit closer, but just make sure you glue these edges close. But I'm going to make that I'm going to make this part the front. Can't really see the seams, but you can make those seams tighter by gluing them down. And then I just take the thing where I feel it's the best looking front, and there it is. So it's popped up a little bit because I had a little defect there. It just fits in, and we have a little, there we go, a fun little way to give a gift. My little retro canister is actually quite big, but the reason why you don't want to go too much smaller is because of all the little areas you got to reach in, but that's up to you how small you want to go. So I hope you like this project, and thank you for watching.